Thank you all for joining us today for another virtual African Union youth consultation on COVID-19 for a collective youth response. Every Wednesday, I host a special guest who is an African decision maker with whom you engage directly and you ask your questions live. So if you want to ask a question, just go down to the bottom of your page, your screen, and where it says Q&A and click the Ask Question tab. Besides Zoom, we are also live on Facebook. So check out A Youth Envoy Facebook page and share with your friends. We will also take a few questions from there. So this time we are collaborating with Impact for Development in the production of this webinar, which will be aired with simultaneous translation to French. So I will try to speak a bit slower today. Our interpreter name is also Aya, Aya Espaini. Alors, si vous êtes francophone, s'il vous plaît, cliquez sur Interprétation dans les options et sélectionnez Français. We will also run a couple of polls throughout the webinar, so make sure you participate and make your voice heard on this particular topic today. This week, I have a very special guest, Madame Bineta Diop, the Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security. I'm used to calling her Mama Diop, so it'd be hard to be the host today and stick to formalities. We're going to cover multiple topics under today's theme, the role of youth and women, civil society led by young people and women. And we know that at the African Union, Madame Diop, you have a huge mandate under your portfolio as the special envoy that covers women, peace and security agenda, which really includes advocacy to governments while engaging civil society and communities at the grassroots. So before I start, I just want to ask you, how are you and where are you now in the world?
Good morning or afternoon to all of you, but especially Madam Aya Shebi, and I'm so proud to see you and making sure that our voices are heard and the youth voices are loudly heard and hosting your webinar, and I follow you every week. So it's not about the youth, it's about the elders as well that we are. So thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to see you safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you are, where are you right now? Are you in Geneva?
I'm in Geneva. Right now, sitting in Geneva, and of course, I would love to be in Senegal with my grandchildren. But you know, the lockdown, you know, before just I could travel to Dakar, we had lockdown, and I had to be here.
Yeah.
So, but I'm connecting every day. So,
yeah.
And seeing grandchildren being safe. Yes.
Yeah, it's great to hear that everyone is safe. So to get us started, I wanted to ask you a general question that we receive a lot from young people on how do we play our role in the prevention and response to the pandemic? How do we collaborate with governments? Because as we know, this really requires collaboration between governments and citizens to be able to get out of the crisis. So young people mainly always ask, what is our role as activists, movements, organization, civil society at large?
Thank you, Aya. Let me just start by saying that we have been, you know, get into this pandemic and we were not prepared for it, you know. And what COVID-19 have shown, it has exposed us, and it has exacerbated the inequality and the gaps that exist in socio-economic system, but also in the social infrastructure. You know, so the gaps that existing have been seen as a wider gap when the pandemic came in. And we have realized that issues of gender-based violence, for example, is everywhere. It's not just in Africa, but it's happening in the whole of the world, all over the world. 70% of the health workers, you know, in Europe, every 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, we clap for the workers. But who are what at the front line? Are the women health workers. They are 70% of them. And I also say that when you look at the data, we said, okay, those who are infected are more men, even though I wanted to be corrected. But in some countries, it's more women than men. But we need to collect data to make sure that we know what are the real inequality between men and women in this. So the social workers and the one that are the health workers, they are 70% are women. So I don't need to go back to the whole sectors where the impacted, not just the infected, but the impacted of the COVID on those situations. So what we need to do ourselves, and you are already doing it. I think it's civil society when it comes to the Ebola, community-led and young people. I recall that there was a huge mobilization by the African Union of young people, but also for women to go to the Ebola areas and make sure that they were contributing in the cure and making sure the sensitization, but also making sure that they respond positively. So one government cannot make it. And that's what I see the role of the women-led organization and the youth. We cannot find solution alone by letting governments, because we know that the gaps are huge right now, and I named some of them, but we need to make sure that all of us are mobilized, and the youth have to be at the front. And maybe we can discuss the role of the youth, because many of you are losing your job. You already had job, the digital job that I could see, but many of you are losing the job. The women also that are in the informal economy lost a job because of the lockdown. So we need to make sure that we reinvent, we innovate, and we make sure that we are part and parcel of the transformation. Because now we cannot leave it as it is. We need to make sure that we transform. And that is where the young people have a role to play, the youth, and we go specifically on innovative way of contributing. And as we always say, there is no trade-off on when it comes to life on livelihood. Maybe the pandemic have really impacted in the livelihood of the youth, the livelihood of the women. So the response should be also led by the youth and the women, which represent more than 70% of the population. So the building of the capital should not be financial capital alone, but the building of also the human capital. And the young people are the human capital when it comes to the reconstruction and the development. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Madame Diop. And just following up on what you're saying of young people having to engage in women organization, especially young women organization having to engage, we see many of these organizations on the front line who are offering support, whether psychological or social assistance. We see a lot of
Yes.
organization producing protective gear, masks, hygiene, doing door to door, but it seems that many of them are overwhelmed. And I have a question from the African Youth Front on coronavirus, asking these kind of organizations who are now lacking capacity, lacking funding, lacking facilities or shelters for victims they are assisting, how can they be supported? What should governments do? What should maybe foundations do to support them?
I'm very happy that you are sharing experience, because young people tend maybe because being at the front but not having the solution sometime and not being included at the table. But it's good to share the experience. It's good for them to know that what's happening, for example, as you said, in Nigeria, that the Federation of Muslim Women Association are working at the community level, and through the media, making sure that the spread, how to counter the virus. And you have so many examples in Sudan. I give an example on issues that in conflict, those who are working in refugee camps, distributing food, etc. I always say that we need to demonstrate the youth ingenuity, because the young people had so much experience in some of the issues like the digital or invention. When it comes to mask, you have been the first one to start saying that, yes, you wear the mask in Africa. Wear the mask. When the Europe was saying, no, don't wear the mask if you are not in hospital. Africans started doing the mask, and the young people have been doing that. That innovation, and some people are even trying, the young people, to design ventilators, and those are the kind of things that we needed to protect the life of the people. Immediately, you were at the front. Today, I was listening to the private sector with the World Economic Forum just before this one. And we look at the foundation, some of the foundation, to say, if you don't invest on the women and the youth, you are missing the boat. You will not have the adequate response. So we need to make sure that that advocacy is done, but we need the young people also to come up front. Nobody will come and say, listen, I give you the resource to do it. Show that you have solutions, come up front, show it. There is now digital everywhere, and say that this is what I'm contributing and I need support. It's, of course, there are funds that have been established by member states. And this is also the role of the youth, is to make our government this time accountable. There are funds that have been put by the African Union. There are funds that have been put at national level, and funds that are coming from different angles to say, we need to, the regular fund that were coming out now, everybody is putting it on the COVID. So it's a time to seize the opportunity to say that we have solutions. So let's make sure that those solutions, we are going to show it. And, for the young people, you have the special envoy on youth, who are showing the example of what youth are doing. So let's mobilize around that platform, the AU platform, and make sure that you connect also with the CDC, because what Africa CDC is mobilizing young people to deploy them, 1 million young people. So we need to access those funding, and we need to access the funding of the African Union, but also the funding of our government. If we don't access it, people talk about debt relief right now. I mean, making sure that at least we freeze for the time being the interest of the debt and make sure that it's reinvested. So we need to make sure that the young people and the women are at the front on advocacy, where it should be redirected, not just on the same issues that was before, but business should not be as usual. Put it on the human capital, as I said, on the youth solutions, but also on the women solution. I'm putting always youth and women, because for me, the intergenerational discussion should continue. We need to share our own experience as elders, but also we need to learn from the young people, because you have, as I said, the technical part. You are all on the digital. You are all, versed on social media. We need that experience to expose what is going on, but also bring out the solutions to everybody.
Absolutely. And we know that you are a great champion for intergenerational dialogues and collaboration, especially through the African Women Leaders Network. And now we have with us actually a voice from the ground in South Sudan, my sister Ria, who is member of the Awlin Young Women Leaders Caucus. So I want to introduce Ria to also make an intervention and give us her perspective as activist, as feminist, as someone who's working on the ground in South Sudan. And I met her last year in my mission to Juba and was extremely impressed by her power of voice and inspiration and also impact on the ground. So very glad and very grateful to have you, Ria, with us. I'll give you 3 minutes to make an intervention, and then Madame Diop can react to that.
Thank you so much. I, my sister in the struggle, Mama Diop, and we are humbled as young people, and we shall surely carry on the baton as we grow older. I also want to thank the youth who are part of this discussion today. Thank you so much for sparing your time to have a conversation so that we move together to change Africa as well. My name is Ria William Uyada. I am the founder and executive director of Crown the Woman South Sudan, and I am a women's human rights and a peace activist as well. I wear many hats, and I am a young, passionate woman, only turned 28 years old. When people look at my body, they say you're too old, and when I speak out loud, they say you sound older than your age. But I am happy to be part of this discussion, and this technology was trying to stop me, but I'm happy that this is happening. And as young people, we have to learn how to use technology, because with COVID-19, we have to keep the work going, and we have to keep on learning as well. So thank you so much for organizing this, Aya, and the team as well. So quickly, I will rush to my intervention and talk about as well a little bit about the work that I do. I work with Crown the Woman, as I said, and it's a feminist organization. And Crown the Woman is an organization that is run by young women, full of young women and passionate. And we work with everyone, the young, the old, men and boys, to change the narrative for South Sudanese Africans, so that we are able to change the patriarchal mind as well. One of the things we do is peace building. We have been part of the peace process as well for South Sudan that just concluded the high-level revitalization forum. And we have been pushing for voices of girls and women, amplifying our issues, voices of youth, voices of civil society, and peace means a lot for us as Crown the Woman. The other thing we do in Crown the Woman is amplify issues like gender-based violence and rape. And you have seen, for those who follow us on social media, we have gone on the streets during COVID-19 to protest a rape of an 8-year-old girl who was gang raped, and also a 7-month-old pregnant woman who was gang raped as well recently, all this in the span of the last 10 days. And when we were organizing this, I wanted to share this. We got a lot of obstacles. One of them was, you cannot organize because it's COVID-19, you will get arrested, because there are rules by the government and the national security not to organize, not to go on the streets. And actually someone told us that if you go on the streets, you're going to be arrested. And I got all these calls from my colleagues, and I told them, if no one is going with me, I will go alone, because with COVID-19, issues of gender-based violence are going to increase. We know that it's the women and the girls who are struggling strongly right now in the marketplaces to put food on the table, as men's businesses or sources of income are closed. And with this, it encouraged so many young people. About 50 of us went on the streets. We respected social distance. We wore our gloves. We wore our masks. We wrote a very strong petition. We worked with so many other sisters around the world, from the African Women Leadership Network, from all over the world, to advise us on how we should go about this. And we hit the streets, and our message was heard. And the Minister of Gender took our message, and she said she will work with us to stop issues of rape in South Sudan. So quickly, why I shared that story is because as young people, we think that we are limited by our age, which is true, because being part of the peace process has taught me that I was always questioned, you are young, what do you want? You're not yet married, where is your husband? So also, those are some of the limitations, but we shouldn't allow those as young people, especially women, to stop us from pushing and speaking against issues as well. Some of the challenges we face is being kicked out of processes because we are young, Mama Diop. And I call this, and I want to just tell you, I'm happy that you talked about connecting the intergenerational dialogue between us, the young, and the older people to get a better solution. And I wanted to just re-echo that women are the least tapped into resources, more especially us, the young women in Africa. And this is proven statistically all over the world. And Mama Diop, when he talked about tapping into the potential of youth and women, and I strongly agree with you, and we have to really empower more women more young women to keep on doing this. And I thank you, Aya. You know, you inspire us to keep on doing this work. If Aya can do it, why not me? So you really inspire us to do this. And when Mama Diop talks about resources, we shouldn't allow resources to allow us young people from doing our work. Do it, and then others will follow. Trust me, when we're doing the protests, we reached out to donors and they said, we do not have money. Come tomorrow, come next week. And we wanted things like sanitizers. We wanted masks. That is all we wanted, not even hard cash. But we said, okay, if it cannot work, we reached out to tailors. Please make for us masks. We shall pay you later if we get the money. Please give us sanitizers. So those who don't have, carry from your houses. They said we wanted t-shirts. We couldn't get t-shirts. I said, wear white t-shirts, wear wraps around your head, wear wraps around your waist, because it is an African thing. Let us hit the streets and amplify the issue of this 8-year-old girl and a 7 months pregnant woman that is raped. And we went without money, without resources, Mama Diop. So you're right, as young people, we should not wait to be given money. When they see we are doing a good job, they will follow us and they will give us more money and more resources to do that. Because I'm out of time, I'll quickly go to my asks. I want to just remind ourselves that as African Union, we were looking at great agendas like the African Union Agenda 2020 on silencing guns. And now we have COVID-19 going on. What are we going to do about it? South Sudan, we have signed agreements. We have a government formed in place, but still there are guns loud in all parts of South Sudan. In Yei, in Juba, in Quebec, all these places, people are being raped. Women are the majority and girls facing problems. So I request, South Sudan's arms embargo is ending in May. I request that if Mama Diop, you could use your position in that power to request that the arms embargo is not lifted, because we shall be in trouble and the guns will become louder. Also with COVID-19, it's going to be difficult, Mama Diop and my sister Aya and the other youth, it's going to be difficult to promote our work, to keep on doing what we are doing. So, and for us young women, we are saying peace during COVID means protection of women. Peace means no gun. Peace means silencing the guns, working with the youth, working with the women to ensure that we achieve the African Union agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ria, for your powerful testimony. And thank you really for the amazing work you're doing. We're all following your work and we're very proud of it. So without further ado, I want to give the floor to Mama Diop to respond. And I think your question on silencing the guns was very clear. Where are we with this ambitious agenda of 2020 silencing the guns, and especially on South Sudan?
Thank you, Ria. I mean, it's this example show that the situation in conflict right now, like a country like South Sudan or countries in the Sahel or the Lake Chad Basin, or even in North Africa, when in Libya and others. So there is a need to silence the gun. The chairperson of the African Union have made a strong call to say this is time to really combat the invisible enemy, which is the COVID, rather than concentrating to kill one another. I think this has been very loud and clear from the chairperson, Musa Faki Mohammed. And I'm sure that civil society, and I hear the other day, the network, GMAC, which have been saying we need to prolong not just this year as the year of silencing the gun, but also next year. I think civil society are demanding that we work over maybe the 5 years to say that we need to work on that while we are fighting against, the pandemic. Let me come back to the issue of rape. I think it's, we don't have the data, but it exists. We don't need data to say that rape is existing. Violence at home is existing. What we have seen it even in Europe or America, everywhere. But the most difficult part is really the issues of rape during the wartime. That is now double, as you have mentioned, during this time that people are locked down and we don't see those who are the perpetrators. So it's a time for us first to make sure that we have the peace centers, you know, the one-stop centers. So women can have, in many places, ministers of gender and ministers of foreign affairs have said that they have a call center when you can call. We need that to make sure that we report our cases. We make sure that we also address the issue of military and police, because we know that distribution of food or even the surveillance of the lockdown are done by the military themselves. So they are part of the solution, but also part of the problem. So we need to make sure that zero tolerance policy, we need to advocate now for the implementation of that policy. So those who are bringing security should be even the female, because community wanted to see police female, because you can interact